Today we're going to be covering Chapter 13, Section 3 and 4, and this is going to be the presidencies of William Howard Taft and Woodrow Wilson. So we're going to start with William Howard Taft first. William Howard Taft was a man who law was his passion. His lifelong goal was to be Supreme Court, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and he was involved with law, and then he kind of moved up through the ranks through the justice system in Ohio. And when William McKinley became president, and after the United States defeated Spain in the Spanish-American War, and the United States got control of the Philippines, McKinley made Taft kind of governor of the Philippines, and it was Taft's goal or his objective to get the Philippines ready to become an independent country, to get the people of the Philippines to like the United States, and then to try to make the Philippines a little bit more modern, give them more roads, more railroads, schools, hospitals, streets, things like that. And Taft did a really good job, and the people of the Philippines started to, ease up on their dislike towards the United States. Well, and the other thing is, this was perfect for Taft because Taft really didn't like politics, and he's in politics, so to speak, but it's not in the United States. I mean, the guy's 10, 12,000 miles away from the U.S., so it was really a good fit for him. Well, he comes back to the United States, and he is given a position in Roosevelt's cabinet, and he does such a good job with that Roosevelt calls Taft and his wife to the White House, and he tells Taft that he's so impressed with the job that he's done that he wants Taft to succeed him as president. And Taft is like, well, thank you for the compliment and the opportunity, but I don't want to be president. I don't like being in the spotlight, and I just don't like politics that much. And so Taft's wife pulls him aside and talks to him, and she says, well, you may not want to be president, but I want to be first lady. And so Taft goes back to Roosevelt and he says, okay, well, I guess I'll go ahead and run for president in 1908, because Roosevelt is extremely popular. He's not necessarily all that popular with his own political party, with the Republicans, because, again, I said this last week, that Roosevelt is a bipartisan president. He wants what's best for the people, and he doesn't care where the idea came from. And so Republicans were a little upset by that. But as far as the American people go, they loved him, and that's who determines who our president's going to be. And so, well, to a certain extent. Nonetheless, we have the 1908 election, and Taft wins fairly easily. Now, Taft, and remember, Roosevelt was a very energetic man. He was highly educated. He was very athletic. Taft, on the other hand, Taft was a good-sized guy. When he became president, he weighed about 225, 230, and he was about 6'3", so it's not like he was a small guy. He was a good-sized guy. Well, being president and Taft not liking politics was not a good mix. It caused Taft to have a lot of stress. And when people are stressed out, they deal with it in various ways. Taft's coping mechanism was he ate. And he ate more, and he ate more, and he ate more. And in Taft's first year of being president, he gained right around 100 pounds. So if you think about it, he's gaining 8 to 9 pounds every month. And he peaks out right around 325, 330. And then story goes that Taft goes to take a bath one evening in the White House, and he gets stuck in the tub. Now, conventional wisdom might tell someone that that's maybe a little bit of a sign that they need to go on a diet. And it's not that Taft didn't try to lose weight, but the moment he would lose it, he would find it, and then he would find more of it. And so his weight would just yo-yo up and down. So to keep that from ever happening again, that embarrassment from ever happening again, it is said that Taft ordered a new bathtub for the White House, and that 3 full-size grown men could fit inside of this tub very easily.
President William Howard Taft was the 27th President of the United States. He served from 1909 until 1913. After his presidency, he served as the Chief Justice of the United States. He is the only person in the history of the United States to have served as the head of both the judicial and executive branches of government. President Taft was born on September 15, 1857 in Cincinnati, Ohio. His father was a lawyer who pushed President Taft to do well in school and work hard. He went on to study at Yale College in New Haven, Connecticut. He later attended Cincinnati Law School and began studying law. He graduated in 1880, and then after working in several law positions, he was appointed a Superior Court judge in Cincinnati in 1887. In 1886, he married his sweetheart, Helen Herron. They had 3 children together named Robert, Helen, and Charles. Herron was a great supporter to President Taft throughout their 44 years of marriage. In 1891, President Taft served as a judge in the newly created United States Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit. He also began teaching constitutional law at the University of Cincinnati. But in 1900, life changed for President Taft, and he was appointed by President McKinley to be the chairman of a commission that was helping the Philippines start their own government. President Taft wasn't too excited about this because he really wanted to be on the Supreme Court, but he moved to the Philippines and helped get their government up on its feet and running. In 1904, President Taft came back to the United States and was appointed by President Roosevelt to be the Secretary of War. In this job, he met with many world leaders and formed alliances. In 1908, many people felt that he was ready to run for president. President Taft wasn't so sure he wanted to be president, but he knew that he could do a lot of good. President Taft did not like campaigning. It felt awkward to him and made him uncomfortable, but he won and was the president from 1909 until 1913. During President Taft's term, he created the United States Chamber of Commerce, reorganized the State Department so that it was operating for the current times, worked to improve foreign relationships, and established corporate income tax. President Taft ran for re-election, but was almost relieved that he didn't win. He went on to do what he wanted to do all along, be a Supreme Court judge. He became the Chief Justice, and he also taught law at Yale University. President Taft passed away on March 8, 1930. He will always be remembered for his love of law and America.
So there's a little quick bio on William Howard Taft. Now, if you look at Taft's presidency from 1909 to 1913 when he was president, there wasn't a whole lot going on, and so there isn't any, there aren't any real big moments that kind of stick out. The reason why Roosevelt wanted Taft to be his successor is that he saw what he did in the Philippines, and he thought this is the mind of a progressive, and that's what I want. Is I want a progressive to take over. And when Roosevelt is done with his presidency, I mean, if he wants to serve another term, he can, because we haven't had a constitutional amendment saying a president can only serve 2 terms. And Roosevelt has served 2 terms because when he finished out McKinley's term, that counted as a full term, and then he gets elected in 1904. So there's 2 full terms. If he wants to run in 1908, he can. He doesn't. Instead, Roosevelt says, I'm going to go on safari in Africa, and he's gone for quite some time. He's gone for over a year. And when he gets back and he sees what Taft has done in terms of his progressive politics, Roosevelt is just furious that he says that Taft has become conservative on him and everything he's done is anti-progressive. The thing is, Taft was actually more of a trust buster than Roosevelt was. Taft broke down more trust than Roosevelt did. But when Taft did this, he didn't boast about it. He just once he broke one trust, he moved right on to the next. Where Roosevelt was, would gloat about it, and he would make sure it was headline news, and that wasn't Taft. Well, Roosevelt says, I've got to run for president again, and I've got to fix everything that Taft messed up. Now, again, Taft didn't want to be president. At the same time, Taft doesn't want to be bullied out of not being president. And so when Roosevelt is very critical of what Taft has done, obviously Taft is offended by it. And to try to maybe seek a little revenge or retribution, Taft says, well, I'm going to run for president in 1912. And Roosevelt's thinking, well, in order to do that, you have to get the Republicans to nominate you. And Roosevelt doesn't think that's going to happen. But to Roosevelt's surprise, Taft is nominated by the Republicans. But again, the Republicans didn't think all that highly of Roosevelt. And so Taft gets the nod. Roosevelt then says, well, to heck with this. I'm just going to go form my own political party. And he does. He forms the Progressive Party. And then the Democrats nominate Woodrow Wilson, who, as the governor of New Jersey, implemented a lot of progressive reform there. Now, sometimes you'll hear the Progressive Party referred to as the Bull Moose Party. And the reason for that is when Roosevelt said he was going to run, there were people that were kind of critical of Roosevelt's health. Not that he was in bad health, but they were just saying that, Roosevelt's now in his 50s, and they just didn't think that a person that age should be running for president. And Roosevelt, said, well, I'm as fit as a bull moose, and the name stuck. It's also said that when Roosevelt was campaigning, that he had just given a speech, and he folded the speech up, and he put it in the pocket of his jacket, and he also had his glasses in there as well, and the case that his glasses were in. And a person walked up and really at a short distance shot Roosevelt, and the bullet went right through the wadded up papers, the speech, and then they hit the case that it was in. And Roosevelt, when everything had settled, they wanted to obviously take him to the hospital, and he said, no, I still, have some campaigning to do. So he finished on with what he wanted to do that day, and then actually they took him to the hospital, and the bullet actually had penetrated deeper into him than what anyone had originally thought, based upon the fact that he didn't really seem all that fazed by it. Nonetheless, the 1912 election was a very ugly election. Roosevelt was just relentless in terms of his criticism of Taft, and he even called him names. So the 1912 election, it was ugly. There was a lot of name calling going on. I mean, the 1912 election was what the 2016 election was, but it didn't get quite as personal. But it was said that Roosevelt did at times poke fun at Taft's weight, and that at one point Taft just broke down. So I'm going to end this video lecture now, and then the next one, part 2, is going to pick up with the 1912 election.